It was just so much fun being a kid again, obsessed with Harry Potter. Hello book friends! Today we are continuing my series on rereading the Harry Potter series in my 30s. Today we're starting Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and I am jumping right into this one. I think I said in the last vlog that I was going to probably read one book per week and have one vlog per week dedicated to Harry Potter, but I don't think that's going to happen. I am jumping right into this, and all of these vlogs, all 7 of them, may come out just in a row. This may just turn into a Harry Potter channel for the next few weeks because I am obsessed. So I am jumping right back into the Harry Potter world. It's just been so much fun and so nostalgic, and I feel like I've kind of wanted to just get back to my roots a little bit. Just having a lot of personal changes, just trying to do different things to get different results. And I guess you could consider rereading a book one of those changes, because rereading a book is something that I've never done before. And I'm doing it now, and I'm glad I'm doing it. So, yeah, we are going to continue on my Harry Potter in my 30s journey with Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So, I don't remember a ton of what happens in this book. I mean, I remember a few key points. The main points of this book that I remember are Aragog, because I really hate spiders, and so that section kind of traumatized me. I remember Lockhart because he was just a weird guy. He was annoying, but I think I never really understood really the depths of him, so I'm interested to get more into him and see, is there more to Lockhart than meets the eye that my little 3rd or 4th grade brain missed? And then, of course, just getting into the Chamber of Secrets. Who could forget that? So, and then finding Ginny down there. So, yeah, I don't remember how the plot worked out or really... Oh, I remember the Polyjuice potion. But I guess I don't really remember how all of these things are connected and how, like, the plot came together. So it'll be interesting to see how it worked out and how I put it all together in my 30-something brain. Like the first book, this is also a pretty short read. It's roughly the same length as The Sorcerer's Stone, and it's pretty easy, kind of off topic. But I really appreciate how the chapters are, like, they have actual names and they are actually listed in the beginning of the book. It's just so helpful when I'm going back through the book to note my thoughts. Just being able to look at this chapter list, it really helps me kind of get my bearings in the book. And each title helps kind of jog my memory so that I can really go back through the plot and think it through without just being completely lost in the timeline and not knowing what happened where. With all of these, it's so easy to just go back and look at the series of events. And so I really appreciate this. This is rare in books. It's just going to help me a ton when I'm going back through the books, because a lot happens in this series. And yeah, just being able to have some bearings of what happened when, I think is going to be super helpful. So yeah, that is all for now. I'm going to start reading, and I will update you when I have thoughts, or when I get even more excited than I already am to get into Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, arguably where the real story starts. Because, well, I mean, we all love the Sorcerer's Stone, but it really is kind of one big introduction, and the big reveal at the end is basically just that Voldemort does still exist. But it's it's implied throughout the entire book, but we get confirmation at the end that Voldemort is still there. And in this book, this is where we really get to find out what Harry's going to do about it. This is the book where things really start happening, where we really start to get into Harry, Ron, and Hermione's personalities and drive, and what are they going to do about this? Voldemort is here, and how are they going to deal with it? So yeah, I will update you when I have thoughts.
I've been trying to bend loose since I barely was walking. I've been trying harder all my life, cause I need to be perfect. If I could just be a little better, maybe you could be my salvation out of here. I can get it off, we are never done. I'm Julian, baby, you are like the sun. Pour out your love, fill me to the top. Let me hear the champagne burst and pop. Cause as long as you're here with me, I will live and love and wild and free. I could just be a little better, maybe you could be my salvation out of here. Ooh, I can get it off, we are never done. I'm Juliet, baby, you are like the sun. Pour out all your love, fill me to the top. Let me hear the champagne.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we knew Lockhart was annoying, but I never picked up on just how condescending and self-important he is when I was reading it when I was younger. But I guess these days I'm just more attuned to picking up on these kinds of things. He's like, I'm a seeker too, and I'm always happy to pass on my expertise to less able players. Really, guy? Also, while we're on the topic of douchey people, Oliver Wood really isn't that nice of a guy. I know in the movies he's portrayed as being a really sweet guy. If you don't remember, he's the Quidditch captain for Gryffindor, and he's just a really nice guy in the movies. But I'm in a section in Chamber of Secrets where Harry is, where they're playing a Quidditch match, and there's yet another bludger that is going after Harry. And Wood is basically like, catch that snitch or die trying. And we're going to forfeit the match if you... And it's like, just catch the snitch or die trying. And Fred and George kind of called him out on being kind of a jerk and just not caring about Harry as a person, but only caring about winning. So, I mean, I guess there's always going to be characters like that. I think what I'm just trying to point out here is the difference in how he's portrayed in the movie versus how he's portrayed in the book, because so far a lot of the other characters are very true to their character, like from what I remember in the movie versus how I remembered them in the book, or how they are actually portrayed in the book, because from what I've read so far, he's just very different, and he's the first character I've come across that is that different. I mentioned in the last video that I really wanted to pay close attention to Snape because his character just really always fascinated me, that he turned out to be a good guy, but he did a lot of jerky things. So yeah, so I really just wanted to pay attention to what he does and his actions so that I can kind of figure him out, because he's a curious person. So I'm on page 193 and we're in the section about the dueling club. And so it says, so this is the part where Harry and Malfoy get paired up to like do a dueling demonstration. And so this book says, Snape moved closer to Malfoy, bent down and whispered something in his ear. Malfoy smirked. And then after that, Malfoy did like that snake spell where like a snake ended up on the stage. It's implied that Snape told Malfoy to do this. And then of course, Harry is a parcel mouth. He spoke to the snake and told it not to attack Justin. But so I can't think of any reason why Snape would do this besides to get Harry in trouble or to gather evidence that he was in fact the one who opened the chamber because he could speak to snakes. And did he really not know the answer? Was he just looking for evidence that this could have been Harry? Because even if he did, that's not protecting Harry. So he wanted evidence that Harry did open the Chamber of Secrets. I really can't think of any reason why that would be done with good intentions, like intentions of protecting Harry. So yeah, this is one of those interesting things where I guess not everything Snape ever does has good intentions, and that's what makes him interesting. But knowing where Snape's character ends up, that's really what I'm looking for in every one of Snape's actions. I'm looking for the good in every one of the actions. And so I don't know. I guess I'll find good in some actions and some not. But yeah, he's very interesting. I guess we'll see. Maybe we'll learn more about this later, and I am speaking too soon because the answer's right around the corner.
You're a rebel, getting into trouble. You are kinda like a fire, like a fire, like a fire. Unpredictable, so original. You are never backing down, backing down, backing down. That's what I like about you. So dangerous, I get this rush when I'm with you. I go all in,
Hello, I am back. I have finished Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and we're going to talk about it. So one of the first things that I noticed in this book is that Harry is much more proactive in what he does in this book. So in the first book, Harry is very just reactive to everything that's thrown at him, which, is understandable because he's completely new to this world, and I guess Hermione is completely new to this world too, but she's just on a different level than the rest of us. I'd probably be more like Harry. But in this book, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are a lot more proactive about what's going on, and they're really trying to make changes and figure things out for themselves rather than just dealing with what's thrown at them. That point is just a really important part of Harry's evolution, and it turns out to be something that's really important throughout the series. And as I go through my thoughts, I'll explain why. I think it'll become clear why I think that is so important. So in this book, Harry, Ron, and Hermione really just take things into their own hands a lot more. And that doesn't even always have to start with Harry. The first thing that I noticed was when Ron and the Weasleys come to rescue Harry using the flying car. That was just the first thing that struck me as so different, because actually I don't know if it was Ron's idea or Fred and George, but they made the choice to do something to help Harry. Likewise, when the barrier at platform 9 3/4 wouldn't let them through, they decided that they were going to fly the car to school. And then later on, when people started getting petrified, they decided they were going to be ambitious and be thieves, and in order to brew the Polyjuice potion so that they could sneak in and talk to Malfoy and see if he was the heir of Slytherin. And then, of course, there's the big one that they actively went looking for the Chamber of Secrets in order to figure out what was going on with and why everyone was getting petrified, why so many people and cats were getting petrified. Side note, why was the cat's name Mrs. Norris? That's a strange name for a cat. But anyway, so this is as opposed to in the Sorcerer's Stone, when they kind of just stumble upon the trapdoor, and that leads into the final conclusion. With this, they actually actively went looking for the chamber and how to get in it, and they found it. Also, the plot lines really developed a lot sooner in this book. So in the Sorcerer's Stone, I mentioned how I really did like the short story chapters, but the plotline took a long time to develop, just because it really was a lot of introduction. But with this, there are lots of plot lines that start early on and things that we get to follow throughout the book. So, the first one being Dobby. He's an interesting character. He pops up very early, and he pops up several times throughout the book. The next one, Lockhart. He was annoying. He's just he's just one of those men. Just stay far away from those kinds of men. But he was also an interesting plot line to follow. I thought I remember the diary coming up a lot sooner, and the fact that Ginny had the diary. But it came up really late. Well, a lot later than I remember. So I don't know. I just thought that was weird. I thought that was a more major plot line throughout the book, but it seemed to, instead of a plot line, be more of a closing surprise. In terms of actual plot lines, I would say this book is more structured than The Sorcerer's Stone, but I don't think it was any better or worse. I just think it was a different style. But I guess I do appreciate it, because if this book was the same way as The Sorcerer's Stone, then it would feel like, as a series, this isn't going to be going anywhere. But I really liked how it's put together from the beginning of the second book. So it's yes, we had all of our explanations and everything, but now it's time to get down to what's really going to happen in this series. Yet again, there's just so much amazing humor that just went completely over my head when I was reading this the first time when I was a kid. Things like Mr. Weasley. There was a scene when Harry first gets to the Burrow, and Mr. Weasley is just questioning Harry about all of these Muggle things. And I think they were discussing going to a train station or something, and Mr. Weasley's are there escalators? And he was just questioning about all of these Muggle things, and it was just hilarious. And that was, I think, one of those things that didn't really register with me back then. I don't know why. I guess I just wasn't really looking for humor at the time. Now I'm a lot more relaxed about reading it. I'm not a kid who's stressed out, who's trying to make sure I get every last word through my little brain because I really want to be a big kid who understands a story. I'm not worried about that anymore, so I'm just having a good time and just picking up on all of the little fun things that I never picked up on before. Speaking of that, I don't know if I just didn't notice. Well, I did notice. It just never registered on my head. The beautiful pettiness of the Nimbus 2001. I always knew that Draco's dad bought the team, the Nimbus 2001s, in order to buy his way onto the team. That was kind of like just a fact. So I was reading it and I came across the Nimbus 2001 and I'm like, that is just next level petty, naming it that. And I'm sure J.K. Rowling, she did that completely on purpose. Just because Nimbus 2000 really rolls off the tongue. It sounds like a great name for a broomstick. But Nimbus 2001 that doesn't roll off the tongue. It sounds awkward. It's awkward to say, but it just highlights Draco's need to one-up Harry, even just by the slightest margin, because that's all he has. Draco, he doesn't have much to offer, really, besides being a Malfoy. But, so I just thought it was, hilarious, naming the broom the Nimbus 2001. She could have named it anything, but she named it that just to highlight Draco's pettiness, and I just thought that was amazing. That was just a great literary choice. So one thing I also wanted to look at was Snape's character. So in this book, we get confirmation that Harry is in fact a Parselmouth. This is drawing on what happened in the previous book and in the zoo scene where Harry makes the glass disappear and turns a boa constrictor on Dudley. But now in this book, we actually get confirmation that Harry can in fact talk to snakes. This confirmation comes during a scene where students are practicing their dueling and Snape comes up and he whispers into Malfoy's ear what we assume to be a spell that he thinks Malfoy should cast in order to disarm Harry. It's supposed to be only disarming. So Malfoy casts a spell and what it does is a snake comes out of his wand and the snake is going to attack someone, and it's revealed that Harry is a Parselmouth because he is able to basically speak to the snake and tell the snake not to attack people. And this is interesting in my timeline of understanding of Snape's character, because why would Snape do this? Because I am looking at Snape with the understanding now that he is not a bad guy and he was ultimately looking out for Harry throughout this entire story. But what benefit could there have been from revealing that Harry was a Parselmouth besides to embarrass him? I mean, it turned out to be helpful to him, but it wasn't a good look for him. Everybody just thought he was the heir of Slytherin. I mean, it hurt his personal brand in a sense. So I guess I don't understand what Snape's motive was in revealing that Harry was a Parselmouth, unless of course that wasn't his motive and he didn't actually whisper that to Malfoy and Malfoy cast that spell all on his own. I mean, is that unlikely? Malfoy was a pretty sneaky kid too, but I don't think he was the greatest wizard. So I don't know, that's just another interesting little tally to add to my confusing Snape moments. Hello, editing me here. After I filmed this clip, I thought about it a little bit more about what Snape's intentions could have been when telling Malfoy to cast the Sectum Sempra and reveal that Harry was a Parselmouth, and what kind of benefit that could possibly have to Harry. And my conclusion was basically just that Snape was being a jerk. But now that I think about it a little deeper, I think it really was Snape's way of staying in character while still being able to give Harry a clue that he needed, because it turned out that it really did need to be Harry that went down into the chamber to face Tom Riddle, and Harry really was at a loss. He didn't have all of the information that he needed. By Snape revealing that Harry was a Parselmouth, that gave Harry a crucial piece of information that he needed in order to help him do what he needed to do. So I didn't realize that. I didn't think of that when I was filming, but I realize that now. And so, yeah, I think that's the reason why Snape did that. So one of the most interesting aspects of this book that I think nobody talks about and nobody focuses on is the flying car and how amazing just the flying car was. The flying car, it basically had its own character arc. It started out as just an inanimate object that was bewitched to fly. It was just a car, and then it had a spell cast on it and it became a flying car, and that was it. It was just like an inanimate object that was bewitched. But then later on, Harry and Ron flew the car to school when they couldn't get through the barrier. The car like got them to school and kind of protected them from the Whomping Willow, and then when it was done, it ran away like a scared dog and just went off into the forest on its own. And they're like, okay, so it's like at that point, it somewhat grew a mind of its own. And then like they didn't hear from the car for a very long time until they needed help because they needed to escape from Aragog in the forest, and the car like came to help them. I mean, just came to rescue them on its own. And then when it was done, it went bumping back into the forest where it wanted to live. And so it went really from an inanimate object to a being on its own. And I think this is important because it's kind of like a humorous mirror of Harry's own relationship to and understanding of magic. Harry went from seeing magic as just a tool that you react with, something that is transactional. You have a problem, you magic it, and problem is solved. And it's like transactional like that, to seeing magic as a state of being. So it started out as just a regular car that didn't fly. They wanted it to fly, so they cast a spell. Now it flies, problem solved. But then later, the car like grows a mind of its own and it becomes sentient. And so it itself becomes a magical being rather than just being an object that is spelled to do a certain thing. The only way that I can really explain this is like the difference between wearing an invisibility cloak in order to be invisible versus actually being invisible, if that makes any sense. Like for me, there's a difference. So it's like it went from being a car that was bewitched to a car that was magical in itself and was a magical being on its own. And I think through this, Harry comes to understand magic as being a state of being rather than just transactional. And so the magic doesn't stop at the spell. Magic is more than wands and spells and specific transactions. Magic is just everywhere and can take many different forms. And I think this is overall important to Harry's development because this comes to help him understand his relationship to Voldemort's existence. Like at this point, he has no idea how Voldemort is still alive. This is where like the first breadcrumbs are sprinkled that Harry is a Horcrux in himself. And so I think this whole like state of being of magic understanding is important to the fact that like Harry himself, rather than just having magic, Harry himself is a magical being, more than in the sense that he has magic that he can cast on other things, but he himself is holding magic within himself. This is what's so much fun about rereading, is that I can look back at this and understand and like see the little things in there of how this story is constructed over the longer term, just because at this point I already know what happens and how it all comes together. So all of this deeper stuff about the flying car and Harry's understanding of magic, all of this never would have come to me in my first read through. But just going back, I think it's so interesting to look at all of the different elements and the lessons that Harry learns along the way. Even if they don't seem really significant at the time, they turn out to be really significant. So for me, like, this is kind of the most interesting thing that I'm getting out of this reread so far, at least for this book, is just that I'm going to be getting to see so many different things. It's not going to be as much about the plot anymore, like, because I know how the plot goes. I know how everything ends up, but I never really delved that deeply into all of the characters, really trying to understand where all of them are coming from and how they all developed. So yeah, I mean, I mentioned before, I am definitely interested in looking at Snape a lot more closely than I did before, but I'm also now following Harry's development as well. And Ron. Ron makes huge strides throughout the series. I know he does. I don't remember the specifics of it, but I definitely am looking for what's going on with Ron, because actually it was quite surprising that Ron had the idea to use the flying car in order to rescue Harry. You would think Ron was not that smart. Like, he's always portrayed to be not that smart, but that was a brilliant idea. Also, last thing, I just remembered that Harry Potter is on like a ton of banned books lists. I think that's going to be my next series, after I finish this, I'm just gonna go into all the banned books lists and read all of the banned books, because I mean, they wouldn't be banned if they weren't good. So so yes, a series for next time to look forward to. So I think that is it for my thoughts on Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Still excited about this series. Gonna start reading The Prisoner of Azkaban as soon as I can. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please press the thumbs up button. I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so you can be notified when we're gonna talk about Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I am holding up the wrong book, but I will see you in my next video. Bye!
You're a rebel.